Primrose Road is the kind of place you forget about until the sun goes down. By day, just another backroad, caught between subdivisions and soybeans. A shortcut to somewhere, maybe. A great road for a cyclist, what with its smooth tarmac and entire lack of traffic. But at night, Primrose Road becomes something else. No streets, no sidewalks, just the crunch of old leaves beneath your shoes, the black ribbon of asphalt stretching out ahead of you like a dare, and the woods pressing in like they're trying to listen. I came out here alone, after dark, on purpose. The stories all start with something like that. A girl walking, alone, a dare, a moment of curiosity that got stretched too far. I wanted to feel it for myself, the tension, the silence, the way the shadows shift across the tree line, the way you start to hear things that probably aren't there, but then maybe they are. They say a girl haunts this road, young, barefoot, dressed in white. She steps into the headlights sometimes. Other times, she even asks for a ride. Sometimes she's already in your car. I haven't seen her, but I do see headlights. Just one set creeping over the hill ahead of me like a pulse. I step off the road into the ditch, hands in my pockets, waiting for the car to pass. A black sedan, trash bag for a window on the back seat driver's side. I wasn't particularly close to the road, and the driver wasn't particularly close to hitting me, but he swerved hard as soon as he noticed me. That's about the first time I realize I'm wearing a white shirt. And for a moment, in the pale wash of his brights, I saw his face, tight jaw, wide eyes, white-knuckled grip on the wheel, and then he was gone. He's going to tell someone what happened tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now around a campfire or over a beer. He'll say he saw a girl on Primrose Road, a pale figure in the dark, just standing there. He won't know her name. He won't know if she was real, but he'll remember the way his heart jumped, and he'll never know the ghost was me. Anyway, it doesn't feel real safe out here after dark, for natural reasons and maybe for supernatural reasons too. I'll come back in the morning. Hello and welcome to A Bend in Time, presented by the History Museum in South Bend. I'm your host, Aaron Helman, and during this series, we're going to dive into some of the spooky stories that you'll find around Michiana, from ghost stories to true crime to unbelievable myths, legends, and folklore. We will take a few historical liberties with the content of some of these stories because by nature, they're rooted in rumor and legend and not historical fact. But that doesn't mean we won't learn plenty of history along the way. And my goal is to help you learn something, stay entertained, and maybe scare you out of your socks while we're at it. During the course of this episode, you'll hear fictional advertisements for very real historical companies and products. We do that to help break up the podcast, provide some levity, to include just a little more history than we could otherwise, and to give you a sense of the time and place when and where all of this is happening. And now, with all that out of the way, we're headed off to Primrose Road, long considered one of the most haunted places in South Bend. The stories are popular and pervasive, and a quick Google search will tell you as much. But unlike a lot of ghost stories, it's difficult to pinpoint an origin story. There's not an awful tragedy, no murder of a girl dressed in white, and not much of a history that would explain why the ghosts are here or what they're so upset about. But there are clues, at least whispers of them. The haunted stretch of Primrose is said to run between Auten and Adams, and whether or not the place really has a haunted history, it's absolutely throwing haunted vibes. For a long time, it was a dirt road covered in crunchy gravel. The road's paved today, but it's too narrow, barely wide enough for two cars. There are no lines on the road, no street lights. During the summer months, the forest and the overgrowth encroaches like a claustrophobia. The leaves on the branches of the trees are thick enough even to blot out the light of the moon and the stars. So no, you should not go walking out here at night. Back in the 1980s, every quality that made Primrose Road the perfect setting for a ghost story also made it the perfect setting for illegal dumping. Long before it was known as South Bend's most haunted stretch of road, Primrose was known as the place where the unscrupulous would unload old couches, old electronics, old car parts, and even the medical waste they didn't want to deal with. Maybe that's what made the ghosts so mad. Not blood, not murder, just garbage. For as remote a section of road as we're talking about, there were actually people who lived out here once upon a time. Died out here too. They might be buried in the nearby cemetery, and they may have just as well been buried on the old family farm, marked with a rotted wooden cross or a long-forgotten stone. And maybe they got awful tired of having leaking microwaves dropped on top of their plot of dirt while they were resting. The stories tell that the ghosts speak, get out, keep walking, you shouldn't be here. If there were people here, then maybe all they wanted was the promise of their rest in peace, and maybe that means they're tired of all the ghost hunters too. But then, maybe they're not trying to scare us. Maybe they're trying to save us. Another ghost story from Primrose Road when we get back from the break.
The 1932 new model South Bend Repair Shop lathe is a practical lathe that will care for all general repair shop machining work that comes up in the average repair shop. Easy payments if desired. Write or visit us at 606 East Madison Street. And now, back to A Bend in Time, presented by the History Museum.
It was a Sunday morning in March 2004 when Michael and Tammy Essig were awakened by a knock at the front door of their home on the corner of Brick and Primrose. The guest was a police officer. He didn't have good news. A man had just died in their backyard. Car crash. And while death was rare enough, the car accidents weren't. According to the Essigs, the fatal wreck was the fourth time a car had ended up in their yard in the previous 2 months. Cars drive fast out here. Given the hills, the bends, and the way intersections seem to appear out of nowhere, it's no surprise that sometimes there are wrecks. Mix that with the occasional ghost hunter chasing a rumor, driving slow with the windows open, no headlights, and it's a recipe for disaster. Enter the ghosts. Maybe they're just tired of the screaming of brakes, the sounds of scraping metal, the damage to the trees that have been there longer than any of them. Maybe they're just looking out for us. But the most oft-repeated story about this section of Primrose swears that if you drive too slow, your tires will be slashed, and if you drive too fast, your engine will die and your car will stall. If the ghosts are using the maneuver to try to maintain their silence, the move has backfired. It has since become a rite of passage for new drivers, on new licenses, to cruise Primrose at exactly 20 miles per hour to see what happens to their tires, and then to cruise back the other way at exactly 30 miles per hour to see what happens to their engines. I've heard the stories repeated dozens of times from people who swear that this part of the story is true. One person even showed me the mechanic bill that proved it. In her case, the tire shop found no problem with the tire that could explain why it would have suddenly deflated the way it did. But when I drove it, nothing. Maybe the ghosts figured out that their automotive pranks were attracting visitors instead of keeping them away. And if you believe the most sordid stories about Primrose Road, then it seems most likely that the ghosts wanted to keep people away. They say that ritualistic things happen in these woods, satanic things. It's all hearsay, of course. The story about the high school friends on a daytime romp in the woods stumbling across the carcass of a goat that had been cleaved clean in half. Another story from some stoners who are sure they wandered unwittingly onto a human sacrifice. A huge, smooth red rock now removed that they used to call Blood Rock. A ball of flame in the center of the road. and upon closer inspection, nothing in the center to burn. If those ritualistic operations have a hub, it might be the farmhouse back in the woods on Primrose Road, except I've checked, and there is no farmhouse in the woods on this section of Primrose Road. So far as I can tell, there never was. But people will swear to you that it is there, that it appears during a full moon, that it flickers into view and vanishes just as quickly, that the building can be summoned by those who know how. One story tells of a hermit who lives in the farmhouse and rules over the woods, that his home only comes into view during the brief moment between the time he opens the door and closes it. Of course, it could just be the way the light of the moon reflects off of the marshy swamp on the west side of the road. Crazier things have happened. At night, especially if you don't know there's standing water back there, you might be shocked at the way the light bounces around, especially when there's no light anywhere else. Either way, you'd have to get in there to notice, and the thing about the woods is that most people never go in there. A dark, secluded forest doesn't have to be haunted to be scary, and it can be dangerous for reasons that have nothing to do with ghosts. That's why most of the people who explore Primrose stay to the street, and that's where we're going to discover the oft-repeated legend of the Lady in White, right after the break.
The South Bend Super Duper is the lure that catches more fish of all kinds in all waters and on all tackle. Get your South Bend Super Duper wherever you buy your fishing gear. South Bend, the best in rods, reels, lines, and lures. And now back to A Bend in Time, presented by the History Museum.
Primrose Road might be creepier at first light than it is in the dark. I'm back, early as possible, this time on my bicycle, careful not to go exactly 20 miles per hour, and confident I can't hit 30. It's a humid morning, and the early steam rises off the forest floor like an audience of apparitions. The forest is thick, and so turning onto Primrose Road from a sunshined Adams Road feels like a descent into darkness. I'm not expecting to find her out here. Not now. They say she only comes at night, the girl in the white dress, or the woman in the white nightgown. Female, for sure. Definitely dressed in white. Sometimes they'll see her on the side of the road, standing, watching, other times walking alongside, sometimes appearing without warning in the middle of the street, causing erratic behavior from drivers, another cause of some of the accidents the area has been famous for. One friend from high school swears she asked him for a ride. He let her into the car, and she sat in the back seat, but as soon as he turned off of Primrose, she vanished. This stretch of road is barely half a mile, and this morning, I'll ride it out and back a half dozen times. I don't know what I'm looking for, and with every passing lap, the sunshine is penetrating just a little bit more, burning off the steam and washing away the eerie veneer that gives Primrose Road its vibe. There is no woman in white, no farmhouse, no ritualistic summoning circle, no whisperings in the woods. Now fully bathed in sunlight, I recognize this road. I've been here before, on my bike. Even got a flat tire out here once. But that was probably nothing, right? By 8:30, I'm ready to give up. I haven't seen a ghost. I haven't seen a person. I haven't even seen a squirrel. But up ahead, there is a car, parked in the ditch. Weird. It wasn't there on the last lap. Black sedan. And wouldn't you know it? A black trash bag for a backseat window. There's a guy wandering the woods next to the car. I stop to ask him if he's all right. You know the story of this road, he asks. I tell him that I do. I swear I saw someone down here last night in this ditch. Can you believe that? I tell him that I do. And then I don't say another word. Because what's the use of a ghost story if there's no one to believe it? Hey, thanks for joining us on A Bend in Time, presented by the History Museum in South Bend. There's more history waiting for you at historymuseumsb.org. I'm your host, Aaron Helman. The theme music is Whose Distance Is It Anyway by Neil Carmichael. During our next episode, we're taking a road trip into southwest Michigan for shipwrecks, ghost towns, and most of all, the legendary melon heads of Allegan County. I hope you'll tune in for that one next. Until then, keep learning new things, and remember, everything is fascinating as long as you stay curious.